Good morning. Okay, we got something a little bit different today. I have a big project that I have to do and I'm just going to take you along with me. Before we get started, it has to do with welding. If you're at all any part of a welder, I don't know what I'm doing. I know a little bit about a lot of things and none of those things I do perfectly. So if I make you cringe, well, let me know. But let me show you some of the things that I'm going to be doing because I'm having some problems and I'm going to be building a pavilion here in the near future. I'm not sure if I'm going to actually be showing that on camera. I may. If you want to see it, let me know in the comments too. But more so, I want to show you kind of this little project I've got going on. I need to make forklift attachment for the end of this because I'm going to be putting like a bucket attachment, basically, kind of like a, I don't know what you call it, kind of like a crow's nest or something, so that I could stand inside of the box at the top of, while it's attached to the tractor, so that I could be up, being picked up and worked on. This way I could be up inside of that crow's nest thing, working on this pavilion, and it'll be a lot easier and I don't just have to stand on the end of the bucket. I already have some forks. Let me show you these and why I hate them so much. So here are the forklift attachments I already have. These, with this, right here, you can see, it attaches directly on to the front of the bucket. So both of the teeth go on in this fashion, and then they connect together by these rods so that it gets the proper spacing and they don't move or kink, but it never works. This thing always bends, the bolts always loosen, and then it's almost impossible to tighten this part down tight enough, especially just by hand. It's nice for picking up small things quickly, but it's not convenient at all. So let me show you my idea on the thing that I'm going to make. All right. Okay, well, this property was super messy when I first moved in, and there was a lot of trash and metal scraps and just tons of things all over this whole property. And some of it was hidden in piles. This thing right here, when I first moved in here, I'm not from the country. I've never owned a tractor or spent any time around them. So when I saw this, can you even see it? So when I saw this, I assumed nothing. I thought maybe part of a tractor, but I wasn't sure. So what this is just a flat piece of metal with a quick attachment for the front of a tractor, meaning that there's hooks so it's upside down. There's hooks on the end of the tractor where the bucket is, so I can quickly drop off that bucket. Not all tractors are this way, it's more of a newer thing. And the front of the tractor will hook into here, and there are rods that when I move a lever, the rods go down. Actually, they're going to come this way, and then they hold in this position. So this is a quick connect attachment for a tractor, and a lot of people use these for DIY projects, and I found this out over time. So what was great about this is that among all that trash, there is also 4 forklift forks that were left behind, along with a lot of other metal pieces. So what I'm going to be doing today, after looking at a bunch of different pictures of how a forklift works, I'm going to be attempting, well, the forklift teeth per se, so I'm going to be attempting to be making a makeshift forklift teeth holder so I can use this setup as a forklift for now and into the future. Hopefully my welds hold up. Like I said, not a welder, but a person who thinks he can weld. And since this thing needs to be under a lot of weight pressure, my welds are really going to matter here, so we'll find out if I'm any good at it at all, period. It might not look pretty, They might not look bad, but are they going to hold up under weight? I'm not sure. We'll figure that out as we go. All right, well, I'll describe some of my thoughts as I go on. I've got a wire brush. I got to get a little bit of this metal off so at least I can, the rust off. I got to get some of the rust off so at least I can weld onto this, because the rust isn't going to cause a good weld if I can get any arc on it at all. So, got a wire brush. Let's open it, get started. Now, my goal isn't to make this shirt perfect and shiny and clean, because I'll just be wasting my time. I want to just make it so it's mostly clean. I'll rub it off later, and then I'll grind away a more specific part of where I'm going to be welding, and then I'll paint over it as I get to it. All right, now my original goal was to weld these forks directly onto the frame right here at these points, just those two. But I figured if I could find some sort of metal, scrap metal around this property somewhere, I may be able to make them more versatile and useful, and not just finding out a stagnant position, but almost work just like, you know, regular forklifts do, where they're able to move out and in depending on what you're picking up. Now, here are the two forks next to each other, kind of like they would fit. I have these rods. Listen, I don't know tons about metal either. So the type of metal this is, I don't know either. That would help if I was welding, but I don't know. So my YouTube certificate only gets me so far for how far it takes me in learning. So here it is. This will sit inside of here. These, if I can move them, there. They both fit perfectly into here. And so there will be one on top and one on bottom, and that will allow the forks to be able to slide in and out. This thing right here is a clip. This clip will go into notches that I will cut, so it will stop it from sliding back and forth. So we'll deal with the notches later. I mainly want to get this piece, this metal rod, welded onto that quick connect plate that we saw first. The only thing is that I have to have a gap for each of these so that the fork itself, the teeth that it has right here, there's a gap enough so that the teeth can slide, but I don't want to go too far. I didn't have too much metal for this. So as I showed you earlier, these rods go to the original, you know, that just the slip-on forks that I have that go onto that just slip onto the bucket, and this is the spacers. Well, since I'm not going to use those forks anymore, and whenever I do use those forks, these things kind of make it annoying anyway, so I tend not to put this piece on, because spacing them is annoying and it always moves. It just makes it really inconvenient. So what I'm going to do is cut this square off, and I'll use these as the spacers just above here. All I'll do is I'll probably cut it in half, put one here. I have no idea if this project is even going to work by the end of this video. We'll see. If it breaks, maybe I'll do a second video to figure out how to make it work, but we're in it on this one. I have always wanted to do that. So from this point here to this point here needs to be about 16 and 5/8, whatever it is. Okay, I don't know it perfectly. We're gonna put this one in place. The bottom one, we're gonna make sure that the bottom one is there because it's kind of hard to measure that inside. And then what we'll do from there, I don't know if you can see me. Yeah, you can see me. Then what we'll do is get the top one more set in after that. But we gotta get the bottom one in first. And here's where most welders might cringe, so bear with me. Wait, hold on there. Before I keep going, you thought I was gonna be bad at welding, right? Well, guess what? I'm way worse than you expected. Here it is, 1, 2, 3, bam! This wonderful, beautiful weld, which will hold so great. Look at this side. It's just a beautiful weld, isn't it? Why am I showing this to you? Well, because I didn't know it was going to be so terrible. But now I am dedicated, as I'm going through and welding this, to use this as a learning opportunity, because this thing that I'm welding right now doesn't quite matter. If I have to cut it down, cut these pieces off, and then give it a second try later, I will. All right, here's where we're at now. So I have got that first, where is it? I've got this first beam on. So talking about welding now, I don't care how it looks, will it hold? And in the future I can work on how it looks. So we got the first one on, and I went from being real choppy to a little bit more smooth. It's just not quite perfect fit. Okay. Oh, okay, I just finished, and all right, not all the welds are the best, especially in the beginning, but as I got closer to the end, I got a lot more comfortable with it. Obviously, they're not the best welds in the world, but they're a lot better than the beginning. I'll show you once I get this on, because we need to make sure that it can withstand the weight. So I'm gonna take off the bucket, put this on, and then we'll see if it works. Hopefully it works. I did not think it was going to work like this, especially when I started seeing my welds be so terrible. I jumped on it. We're really going to know once I put it under a lot more stress. Let me see if there's something that I can lift up that's going to, you know, push it to its limits, or at least the tractor's limits. If I could push it to the tractor's limits, then we'll know that this thing has at least tractor capacity limits. So this is not quite tractor limit, but it sure is pretty close because I could feel the back end getting not quite lifted, but it wants to lift. So if we look at the welds, I'm going to bring you in closer. They don't look good, but they're holding, and that's what's the most important thing. Everything is holding. I'll bring you in. So stick welding was a little bit more tricky than I thought it was going to be, especially with a new rod, because I figured they'd all kind of have the same feel and look while you're welding. It's not quite the same, which I learned, but I'm really glad that I did this. I learned a whole lot by the time of the end of welding. You'll see in the very beginning ones, my welds were really terrible, spotty, splattery, and everywhere. So while I was going through everything, I was messing with the power levels. I was changing and adjusting my speeds. And when you stick weld, your hand needs to be pushing in as the material goes away all at the same time. So it's a tricky process to learn. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope this at least maybe inspired you to try something new and to take some of your old junk or old stuff lying around and make something that could be useful for yourself.